And those are just shared, not your total staff. Those are just the staff that have shared services.
Thank you.
And then the comp board, actually, if you see, and just to bring your attention, we had a C10, which is corrections 10. There was a position that we lost. I guess it's been a while back. It's been probably 10 years or so, or maybe even longer, where I guess the jail population was down and they unfunded the position and county had to fund it. So where the person would have been laid off.
I just have one more question because, you know, I get the whole emergency officer aspect. When you're over capacity or at capacity, does the cook allocation change as well? I know that's silly. You know, you got more people shoving it up. I know.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
just curious because they have the ratio in here in the back.
Right. Yeah, the cook ratio, I don't think we've ever really tried. We actually have 2 full-time.
Yeah, but you know, if you're
part-time.
at, you know, 100 and, you know, because they said, you know, one cook's supposed to do 30 to 49, but if you're at 100, then you should have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know if that's not.
Do
they base that also too on like capacity?
Yeah, they'll take the average. They'll take the average of the, with I believe 3 years that they say in there. 3.
I can
it's on the
imagine
left
those 2
side.
cooks get overwhelmed.
Oh yeah,
We do have 2
well, we
part-time.
use
There's a lot.
we also
a lot
use
to be shoving up.
we also use trustees inside the jail.
Oh yeah,
help in the
to
kitchen.
help in the kitchen.
So sometimes there's only 1 cook that's there that day, but there's 2,
Someone's at home,
and then
yeah.
the trustees are helping. Yeah, the way the schedule works. So the trustees actually help, you know, cook the meals in there. There's 2 hot meals and sandwiches for dinner. So we work them in early morning, you know, like 6 to 2, so that they can do breakfast, hot lunch, and then they do fix the sandwich before they leave for the day. So they all get sandwiches for dinner. So it's 2 hots in a cot
And
instead of
that's
3.
basically just because of like a meal preparation standpoint, right?
Right,
Because they're
right.
cleaning up the kitchen for the day.
Well,
and that's
yeah.
why you get the
Plus the staffing. I mean, you know, we'd have to have, you know, another staff member to do the evening meal.
That's why I was wondering, you know, about your cook ratio here.
Yeah.
So the next item, 3, it says new staffing requests and approval process. I want to understand, and I think because of what the comp board offers you, then the positions that you know you need, you don't have to request new positions very often. You use the positions you already have on the books.
Right. We really don't even, like, when Emily does this and sends this report in, I think there's an actual, maybe kept one in my stuff. When she's doing the comp board budget that she sends in that gets approved, they'll take, this is number 5, tab 5. She puts all this information in to the comp board. Maybe if you need to, she can explain it better than I can, but she puts all this information in and everything, so that's the workload. They take our workload data, and if that workload changes, we'll get a call because there's one sheriff's office in Virginia that has to audit this stuff every year, and they'll call up and say, hey, you had 20 more transports than you had last year. You know, hey, I need to make sure that you got these numbers right, because these numbers are put into that system, and then that's when they send you this letter back here, like I said before, that's on 4 about writing you regards your board budget and the funding for 1 new emergency correction position formerly classified, which they replaced the court service. But if everything stays the same and then there's an overcrowding, they're going to come back and say, hey, you're due, I think a couple years ago they did, hey, you're due 3 emergency jail positions. And that's when we got in contact with the county and says, hey, the comp board says they'll fund 3 additional positions. Otherwise, we don't get any new positions other than what we did with the school resource officer, which was a special situation, and the CIT. So our strength is what the comp board pretty much funds. Otherwise, there are some county positions, but the comp board will come back. If our population would go up by 2,000, the comp board will send us a letter and say, hey, your population went up. You get another law enforcement officer. But then the funding still has to be there
Yeah.
from the state.
The only other instance that I recall, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, was the addition of a nurse in the jail for
Right.
approximately 3 years ago.
Right.
Now, when if something like that happens,
Came through the budget process.
Right.
you go through the budget process and do y'all approve an additional position as a board?
They approved the funding for the position.
Funding for the position?
We went to them and said, or Major Cronk said, you know, hey, we got to provide that either through an outside company that has been done in the past. I think, you know, we had an outside company like Southern Health at one time prior to me.
Privatizing medical
We're privatizing, we're sending their nurses in, and then we were getting our medication from somewhere else. So I think we really saved a lot of money when we went to, you know, getting our own nurse, and then we get our medicine from a different place in bulk. So
I think to your question, though, you, in your budget process, and if I'm wrong, correct me, or Phoebe and Crystal, but you folks adopt a roster of employees. We do not do that as part of our budget process.
If our police department wanted to add an additional position, they would have to come before council and ask
have
for
the
that
vacancy
position.
funding and all of that.
And that is what they've done.
that's what we have to do, yeah.
But they don't actually, in their budget adoption, it doesn't show, we don't have a roster with a number of employees broken out by county departments, constitutional officers, social services.
That year we
And
said,
I think your budget does
Yeah.
include some form of a roster with a
Yeah.
It has a
That's part of the
position
adoption.
control.
I think that year,
We did not have the same
Major
thing.
Cronk came and said in our initial budget and said we need $50,000 to hire a nurse because we have to, you know, we want to hire our own nurse to work in the jail. I think that's how they went about it. And then if they didn't, we wouldn't have got that money, we wouldn't have been able to hire that position.
But if I remember right, it still ended up being cheaper than what you were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it makes sense because then they're able to triage to determine do they actually need to go out for medical care or they stay in.
And then we have a doctor that comes in once a week. That's a part-time position should be listed in there.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's-
Also, I want to address that, I just thought about it, just thinking that the comp board allocates temporary funds also once a year. Same thing when the budget's through. Of course, it's never enough than what we need for county funded positions only, but they'll allocate a certain amount of funds each year as temporary funds that you can use to fill in. It's usually, I want to say roughly like 20,000. It's not a lot, but we also use that to fill in. We got to put in a person, usually I would do the DARE or, you know, wherever funds that's not county funded, or the law enforcement officer that's not comp board reimbursable.
So
and we use those funds to do that. Of course, like I said, it's never enough even for the full year, but that does help.
Yeah, and then some of these positions are 2/3, 1/3 comp board also, like the person that does we have a person that gets the papers from the court and puts the papers in the computer, and then the officers, you know, take them out and serve them. That person's 2/3 and 1/3, and then
I
there's
don't think it's ever,
right.
this is temporary funds. It's
Right.
just kind of grouped together with the reimbursable amounts.
So when
then
you get
there's
that
Right.
the reimbursable amount, that sort of plug and play how you want to use it. It's not like that it's tied just to jail. It's tied to you
That's a
as a
question.
department as a whole.
That's a question that Suzanne needs to probably answer because the reimbursement comes in to them. I would assume that these salaries are added up in law enforcement, corrections, court services is taken, but I don't know when that money comes in. It comes in there.
If it comes in under the salaries, which I'm assuming that it would, even temporary would come in, I would think,
It
under
does.
salaries. It would all be lumped in with the
Back
salary
into that
group.
pot of the
And
comp board.
yes, and it goes in the revenue. That's actually one thing that Emily and I are going to work on, is making sure, actually David and I worked on this a little bit, making sure we all have the revenues going against the same expenses.
Yep.
And so Emily and I are going to refine that a little bit going forward into next budget year to be sure that we've got the correct dollars attached to the correct expenses.
I would just suggest that you loop Mr. Bryan into that. Because
Yeah.
I think that was part of the.
Yeah, just
there
making
were
sure that
revenues
everyone's on the same
applied to different
page.
accounts
Yes.
in the city than because of some, in the county because of assumptions made.
Right. it's a communication issue that I think, and we're working now with.
Yeah, that's why there was agenda item E, communication process.
Right.
I thought of that one all by myself.
So, staffing, no more questions on the staffing or?
And the approval process, so we're good?
Right.
Okay.
We were provided an original approved budget and final budgets for revenues and expenditures. We've been provided that.
And we got the line item as well
Right.
for the budget.
You should have had that at
Yeah,
beginning
Suzanne
of the
sent that
year.
this morning. And
Whenever we came to that, or I wasn't there that night, but my chief deputy, I believe all that was presented when we present our budget to the county. It was given to you guys.
Not to, but we've heard a number of times about the process and the approval process. You've heard how it currently happens. If you have a jail nurse need, that's a shared expense.
correct.
You understand how it has worked in the past. I think part of the reason why we're here is maybe, in the city's opinion, they would like to be involved in that
In the discussion. You know,
approval
there's some
process.
that aren't
So how-
necessarily
How would
us.
we moved on from that topic, but
Yeah.
is that topic, from the city's perspective, satisfied?
That we present our budget to the county, but the city doesn't really have a say-so, because whatever the county approves, then you're left with the 26% of that.
That's
Right,
the way
so-
we've always
We've
done
done
it.
it.
Yeah, so I think, you know, on the flip side, we're trying to look at a, you know,
A way
process
to-
improvement for a funding formula that would accurately reflect our covering of any of the shared jail expenses and things of that nature. You know, for instance, you having a DARE officer doesn't provide me any service. Do you get what I'm saying? Which is,
Yeah, but that's not necessarily that's not where I was headed with that conversation on those shared positions. We've always separated DARE, SROs, all
no,
of
I was
those are
just
in a-
trying to give a,
all those are in a different
example.
pot, you know, in a different place in our budget. But as we go forward with this process, and what I'm trying to make sure I do is look out for our financial position at the end of the year. If we adopt a budget and we then in turn have approved an additional position that potentially the city wasn't a part of the conversation.
Yes.
How does the city want to handle that as part of the budget adoption process?
I think we need to come up with a process for how we communicate on a position allocation or the budget development process, particularly for the shared services aspect. So I think that might be the opportunity for
Right.
Suzanne and David to meet, as well as once they develop, you know, an idea or a framework for something, then you and I to meet and figure out, you know, is that a viable process, and share with our respective governing bodies potentially, and also with this group. I'm not sure, you know, I think, you know, we need to come up with some sort of framework at first, but yeah, I agree there has to be more sort of communication. So that's why, you know, I was talking about like having a communication process. I'm not sure at the end of the day what that will look like, because also, you know, I'm kind of new, so I don't know all of the parts in play right now.
One of the issues that John and I talked about, you know, before Crystal got involved, was that the city council members expressed to me that they feel like they did not have approval of these overages, and by the state law, constitutional, whatever, I don't remember, referred to in the letter from the attorney, the city council has to appropriate all funds that they pay, and so in order for us to make that fifth payment, there has to be a process, like Crystal said, of where council is communicated with, but not only communicated with, but approve the additional cost, and we all, everybody has additional costs, that's not unrealistic, but there has to
be communication throughout the year, you know, whether it's every quarter or
an action by the
understanding.
council approving it, so that it meets the mandate that they've appropriated the funds, so we can make the payment at the end of the year, or, you know, or
Have a
the
discussion
15th.
throughout the year to figure out
Yeah,
what's
because
what.
that issue comes up because you all don't have carry forwards in some items that we were allowed, like a capital, like if you want to, you have a little bit of money left that you want to go into next year and you need to get another car, you start building that money. You know, we've done that before. We built you know, $5,000 over a couple of years to be able to do some of that thing. So that's where, but if we underspend too, my understanding is that's supposed to reflect in that final reconciliation, which I have nothing to do with, you know.
Right.
But this year, you know, or the last couple of years with the jail the way it's been going, and I think since John's been here, I have to talk previous to John, because since John's been here, our funding has changed some because we were underfunded. And then we have all these issues with the overcrowding of the jail that we're having to farm out. And so we're having to come back because we're underfunded because of having to pay that. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's
you can't
issues.
accurately project.
Right. So there's some of those issues that happen that way also.
So I think from a joint services perspective, having our two budget folks sort of doing a sort of financial projection, almost like quarterly, like looking at sheriff's budget and where the money's coming out, and then seeing if there's opportunities where this area is going to get overspent, and then asking sheriff, hey, you know, what happened, that kind of thing. And then so that provides the communication piece for both localities, and then both localities are aware of the budget as it's going through the year. I mean, ultimately, you all are the ones that pass the budget, but we also get, you know, we're on the hook for the shared services aspect, which is the 26%. So at least we have the opportunity throughout the year to be cued in, because it's understood that there's going to be, like I was talking about, you know, like public works. You get 2 bad storms in the beginning of the year, you've blown your overtime budget, and then you've still got to respond to stuff throughout the year. So being able to have that kind of process in place, I think, is a really good foundational perspective or step for all of us.
Instead of just sheriff's department, what if you took that same concept to all joint services?
All joint services should
Quarterly.
be.
Well, I think it happens in a lot of it.
Yeah.
CSA comes,
Child Services Act does.
Child Service Act, they come and tell us, say, we're going to be overspent, and we need some more money.
We do that.
They did us for $500,000 this year. I don't know what they hit y'all up for. But
Supplemental.
Huh?
Supplemental.
Supplemental. But, you know, they came and said,
Yeah.
we need another appropriation. And that happens in other joint.
But, you know, I think maybe having a standardized process for then all of the shared service aspects that then we would ask, you know, that be followed. So I think this is actually an opportunity to develop a model that can be used in other shared services contexts, right?
Right.
That then I think, so then we're always on the same page with the information we get as localities, you know, city and county for that. You know, there's a bigger part too to all this. You know, there's lots of shared services.
Well, the good thing about it, of course, it's extra work for Suzanne and DB, but halfway through the year, it doesn't hurt to know exactly where you are. I mean, if you're
Or if you're
bit
going to be a little,
behind,
you know,
or
you
you're
might
a
be
little bit- you're
2%
headed
over
too
in this
far
one
over,
area.
you know,
We already have, there's a process, we have a process in place.
We have 2 different softwares and things of that nature too. Things may, you know, I don't know. That's out of my realm.
And my part is not saying that you all don't have a process. I just think it's having us looped in and then having us participate in it, and then having, you know, explanation if there's ever, you know, the idea that it looks like you might be over by third quarter in this area, what's going on kind of thing. Because it helps all make good informed decisions, because at the end of the day, I'm not the one that passes the budget. I can just tell them what's a good idea.
After they go through that, then the thing for them to do is jointly meet with you and John, and bring y'all up to speed. There's no use for the elected officials to get into it unless there's a big problem there, but then they ought to share it with the 2 administrators.
Yes, and then that's something we could come back to you all with as
If
this
it's a problem.
committee.
If it's a problem, yeah.
Yeah, and just outline what the process would be.
So I think as far as what we requested, we've received and/or had explained what we requested. And I feel like we're grilling you.
Oh,
and
that's
I
fine.
apologize.
No, I understand. No,
But
it's,
I think we needed to get this point
yeah.
understood
all right.
before we get to some other points.
Oh, it's a complicated issue.
is.
I don't know how you
It
all, I'm sure you're going to leave out of here and you're going to, if you look over this, you're going to have questions, and that's fine. You all know how to reach me. If not, I'll give you my cell phone number if you don't already have it. But the comp board and things is a very complicated organization.
Oh, I do too.
And now,
You know,
I did bring like a list of our PD salaries,
Right,
just
and
by
that's-
title and,
And that's next
position.
on the agenda, presentation of information.
Yep,
regarding
and I have our org chart that I know that went out as a packet, but the new thing is I have our thing, and I'm, like a ninny, I stapled it. So I'll work on getting that staple out of it for y'all.
And this was just asked for comparison?
Right.
I think it's just, good, good information
I
sharing.
was one to ask. I mean, you've already answered one of my questions. How many policemen do you have? I didn't know you had 2 or 25. I didn't
We
know.
got 9 patrolmen.
Just somewhere close.
And how many supervisors that work patrol also?
Oh, there we go. Nails aren't for nothing. So I will
And there's
one pass around.
there's different structures in both
Right.
departments.
Right.
Correct, and so not, even though, they're capable of patrol, we still have, there's sort of the rank of them. That's my org chart.